Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing this afternoon? The final forum for the Sergeant Major of the Army at this year's annual meeting, 2021. Welcome to the Sergeant Major of the Army's annual initiatives brief. Also, a warm welcome to all of our non-commissioned officers and soldiers tuning in via live streaming broadcast all throughout this event, all across the Army. I am Dan Daly, Sergeant Major of the Army, retired. Let me begin by welcoming our distinguished guests, beginning with our host, the 16th Sergeant Major of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Grinston. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Clap for you.
We have a number of distinguished guests with us joining us today. Medal of Honor recipient, Master Sergeant Leroy Petrie. Thank you, sir. We have several of our international Sergeant Major of the Army with us today. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for your presence. It means a lot to our Army and to our association. Let's give our internationals a round of applause. A longtime supporter of the Non-Commissioned Officer Corps of the United States Army and a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, Dr. Rory Cooper in the back. Thanks, Dr. Cooper, for always being here. Fellow Sergeant Majors, distinguished guests, non-commissioned officers and soldiers, it is my honor and privilege at this time to introduce the Sergeant Major of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Grinston.
I wouldn't say just, don't clap just yet. I haven't talked about anything. Might get a couple boos out of here, so we'll see. It's going to be good. I got OC cards, we got questions, we got a lot of things. Welcome to the last day. This is the finale right here. This is where all your questions will be answered. You know why? Because we have the IG here. Ma'am, thanks for being here. Yeah, Sergeant Major Orvis, we saw you. So it's going to be great. We got some questions yesterday. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for hanging in there for AUSA. Thanks for coming back in. We are streaming this live. So some of the other events weren't live. We got Facebook live. We got it live on Twitter and then on Reddit. So if you're going to ask a question in social media, I will ask, please, if you don't have a Reddit account, it's probably too late. You know, download it very quickly. You can do it. But we're usually going to take the questions from Reddit so that we only have one spot, but we are streaming it in 3 different locations to reach a better audience. We're going to record this, and we should have all our wonderful professional military educations dialing in for those that can dial in, and we're going to play this for them. And this is what we did last year, and we're kind of repeating that. So I've got 2 decks of cards. We're going to go through these quickly, and I'd ask you to think about those questions. We got questions that were written on cards from yesterday. We may address those. We also, in here, we have microphones for questions. If you're going to ask a question in the audience and you're going to do it in person, please go to the microphone because of the things I just said. We're streaming this live on Facebook, Reddit, and Twitter so that they can actually hear what your questions are because they may be asking those same questions. So we got a full agenda, and I really appreciate it, so I'm going to jump right in and say I do want to thank a few folks that I may not get a chance to thank in this kind of large forum again. And I think Sergeant Major Sampa, I don't know if he's still hanging in there today, but he will retire in the next 6 or 7 months. So I want to thank him and his service. But there's others. Sergeant Major Tag, he's still here. A great friend, been over there in Korea, was also the America's, Dan, you listening to me? America's First Corps CSM. A great Sergeant Major, and he's going to transition out in Korea soon, and his replacement is here, Jackie Love. You're in the back. Where you at? So now you know who to torture, who's going where. So Sergeant Major Love is going here. So Sergeant Major Tag, to you and your family, thank you. You're always a great host at your house, and he makes some wonderful food. So if you get it, please thank him for his service as you see him going around. AFC, Sergeant Major Crosby will transition out, and Sergeant Major Brian Hester, there you go, right up front, target. So Sergeant Major Mike Crosby is going to transition out in the next few months to another great service to his nation and a great family, married to another service member. And Sergeant Major Jill Crosby is still going to stay with us for a little while longer in the service. So they're doing some family issues right now. So please keep them in our prayers. But Mike Crosby probably won't be here next year. So thank you for his service. And then the USER Sergeant Major, we're not sure if you're going to leave us yet or not, but at least your last turn as the USER Sergeant Major is going to switch out with Jeremiah Inman. And Rob, where you at? Did you hide? You're hiding. So, no, the panel has to sit up front, Rob. So, no, yeah, a great soldier. I'm not sure if he's going to transition yet, but he won't be the USER Sergeant Major. Already named that. Another great friend, and he's got little twins, so God bless you and your family. So, and Angela, they're great soldiers. All these soldiers, when we talk about people first, that's what we really mean. It's about the people and the people that make it up. And those that I just mentioned are just great individuals. And they have, you know, that right there, if you just count like 3 of those, that's over 100 years of service to their country and probably like 100 years in combat. I mean, their years in combat, 5, 6, 7, 8 years for each one of those is just, it's been phenomenal, and I couldn't thank them enough, and I wanted to start by that. Okay, without further ado, let's get this party going. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some initiatives. I really want to cut it off, make sure we got plenty of time for questions. So the first thing, your strategy. Not mine, not the TRADOC Sergeant Major, not the Force Comm Sergeant Major, not the active component, the reserve component. It's the NCO strategy is our baseline for what we're going to do. And you look at all the things that we talked about. We've changed it. It's out. It's not hard. We shortened it. It's 4 pages. I know you can read it. You know, you can actually even remember it. It's cohesive teams that are highly trained, disciplined, and fit. And if you look at the subcategories that go below that, and how does it fit in those buckets? So if you really wanted to think about, let's go for the next year's non-commissioned officer professional development, and each month you take one of those topics, and then you could take those subtopics and say, here, let's talk about where we're going with these. That's your strategy, and that's how we're seeing the Army go forward. And the last thing that we usually don't talk about too much is the soldier for life. That's how we transition. It's not about the transition assistance program. It's that every soldier that comes into the Army is a soldier for life. This is it. It's day one. Everybody in here, you're all a soldier for life. Promise. You all are, even if you didn't serve. I'm just counting you all. Okay, so that is your strategy. It's out. Please get this out to all your NCOs. Have them read it. It's a short read. And then when you look at those things below, those are some of the things we're going to talk about today and how it nests in the NCO strategy just makes sense. Cohesive teams that are highly trained, disciplined, and fit, soldiers for life. That's your strategy. It's out on the street. Please read it. And that's how we're going to talk about those today. Okay, the next slide. So how we're going to shape this, we're going to start, and we're going to take each one of these. I'm going to highlight some of the things that we're working on, some of the things we did, and then what we're trying to work on in the future. So that's how the conversation is going to go, and then we're going to have for questions at the end. The first one is, how do we build cohesive teams? And then what are we going to do about it? So right off the bat, the staff sergeant recalibration. We talked about it yesterday, but what is this whole staff sergeant recalibration? My goal is that every staff sergeant in the United States Army has 24 months, time in grade, time in service before you go to a broadening assignment. And most of the people say, well, Sergeant Major, that's just so easy. We can go do that. It's already happening. Oh, it's not. It's really hard. We can't get there. It's like, Sergeant Major, how do I get there? And here's one of the things, and okay, so don't, and staff sergeants in the room, you can't attack me after this. So we at least doubled their time in service before you get looked at for promotion. We were looking at a staff sergeant to get promoted at 18 months. And that, if I'm looking at and what it costs, well, you wouldn't get promoted till later. So we would look at you, and maybe you made the list for staff sergeant, for first class with 18 months. And they were like, yeah. Well, you did a natural act, so we'd make you platoon sergeant, or we'd put you over here, or we'd do something else but you weren't grounded in your basic fundamentals. You're still going to have time to, I call it the SMA daily model. You're still going to have time to be, 13 years in the Army and be the Sergeant Major of the Army. No. Okay, you're still going to have that opportunity, But what I said is I want you to be an expert in your field. And how are you going to do that if you didn't get that at the staff sergeant level? Almost everything you do, probably all the way to battalion CSM, will be grounded in what you learned as a staff sergeant. If you are a sergeant major in your MOS, 11 Bravo, and you're a battalion CSM, you're probably going to be a battalion CSM of other 11 Bravos. Same thing with 13 series. Same thing with a whole bunch of jobs. So how are you going to go down as a battalion sergeant major? Go, I look at this if I haven't had that time. That is the staff sergeant recalibration. One thing I did talk about, and I will say, and you're going to hear me a couple times in here, things I messed up. So nobody's perfect. We talked about that in the panel. Things I messed up. I thought all I had to do was get all those people out of TRADOC, because I was a force comm sergeant major, right? All I had to do was get all those people out of TRADOC and put them down in the operational force, and it's going to fix the recalibration. Absolutely wrong. Now we are moving 1,000 sergeants back from recruiters to be in the operational force. That still is not going to solve giving us 24 months. There are other things. We actually had to go back to Center of Excellence and say, what's the Delta Company, right? Why didn't the Delta Company 11 Bravo get counted for squad leader time? So there's a whole bunch of other things that we're doing in that staff sergeant recalibration. It's not just about getting some folks from TRADOC or recruiters back into your units. It's how do you use them? How do we account for them? What counts for this really qualified, highly trained person? And that we still have a lot of work to do in the next year. So we are not there yet. And we have not gotten everybody to get 24 months time and grade, time in service. That is the goal, but that's what we're going to do about it. And we're looking into that. We're bringing those back, and we increase the time that you're in a staff sergeant position. But even as somebody today said, if I get 24 months as a staff sergeant time in service, time and grade, and then I get 2-3 years as a recruiter, that's 60 months, and I'm looking at you for 48 months, the math doesn't work out. So we're not finished there yet. But I'd ask everybody, if you're a nominal sergeant major, when we give you the staff sergeants, please use them well. So the more you put them outside of their field, that actually is hurting. So everybody has a piece in this, is how you use them. You got to put them in those authorized positions. You got to give them that time as a squad leader before you move them out. So everybody's hearing me say it. 24 months, time in service, time in grade before you do that broadening assignment. And that will be a good start. Okay, go back. There you go. So build a cohesive teams. We talked about 2 years ago, I said, this is my squad. It was a wonderful acronym, and what was the meaning of this, and how do we dig in, and then what specifically can I do as a Sergeant Major of the Army on my squad? And just in case you might have missed it, my squad includes the Secretary of the Army, the Chief of Staff of the Army, the Vice, and Chief Dixon Carter, the Senior Warrant for the Army. I love my squad. I talk about it all the time. And this is not just a Tim's brief. But just other than me telling you who's in my squad, what am I going to do about it? So we said, when have we ever enabled the squad leader with some technology in their hand? And remember, I'm not talking about a rifle squad leader. This could be a small unit leader. So we went and we said, we're going to develop an app just for squad leaders. So please click on that. So here's another really good news story. And I brought in the staff sergeants, and I think my squad app needs to work on sponsorship. And we gave it to the staff sergeants in the software factory, and they came back to me and said, Sergeant Major, we're not going to work on sponsorship. How did that go? I said, I thought I was pretty clear with this whole sponsorship thing. But here's what I learned is, that's what I wanted. We have to listen to our staff sergeants. They said, hey, Sergeant Major, we need help with time management. Where's the calendar? Where is the task that I can assign to soldiers? How can I communicate with them that something's changed? And where's my calendar, not in the digital training management system that's on a website or somewhere else? Where's that app in my hand that I can communicate with my soldiers on the tasks that we're going to do every day, next week, And how can I see that they just scheduled a dental appointment on the same day we are going to the field or this? That's what the squad leaders develop. We have that out. It's on 3rd CR right now. I think we're at a battalion level. We're moving up to the regiment or squadron through 3rd CR, and then we're going to go out to Fort Hood. And we're hopeful that we'll get this out to you so you can download and start using the app that's designed by staff sergeants for staff sergeants to help you with your time management. And if we can do that. So that was one of the things that we're doing specifically to help you and the staff sergeant or the small unit level leaders, and everybody can use this app. I could use it in the office of the sergeant majors to coordinate things. It's really good. But we're getting that out, should be out by the beginning of the year. Software Factory promised me that. Okay, go back. We've got a couple other initiatives, and I'm just going to highlight because there's other things that I'm sure are going to spark your curiosity as we go out. We have a counseling enhancement tools. We're working on that to help out. We've updated the developing leaders in FM 7-22, and we're still working on those things. So the black on the slide, if you're looking at the slides or you're taking a photo or you're trying to memorize, those in the black, those are the things we have in place, and the reds are some of the things we're still working on. Okay, next slide. Okay, highly trained. We really worked hard on how do we define highly trained. And yesterday you heard about one of the things already on there is expert soldier badge and how we're aligning that. And that is an ongoing initiative. But at the top, the sergeant's time training. This is now codified in 350-1. It was already in there. And we're just going to refine the language and make sure it is in an Army regulation that talks about you have time to train your soldiers in an Army regulation. You don't have to say, well, I heard the SMA say. Go look up in 350-1, and this is what we're asking you to do as leaders to train your soldiers. And that's where it's at. It's grounded in Army regulation. So if you're not doing it, you have a backbone resource to go to other than the SMA said. But that would probably be a good one to start. But the real point is to go look at the regulation. We're working on digital job books. They're already there. Warrior Task and Battle Drills. The Combined Arms Center has really worked on that. And then the Corporal Initiative. So with the Corporal Initiative, we're not finished yet. So we said, hey, how do we give NCOs those small turns? So again, the goal is to make you an expert in your field that builds a cohesive team that's highly trained, disciplined, fit. And how can we start giving you those small touch points on how to be an NCO? So as you graduate BLC, you're going to get promoted to corporal. And one great way, and I didn't tell everybody how to do this, and I thought it was really well done. I think it was JBLM was the first one. And he said, hey, we just went over there with the Corps Commander, and when they graduated BLC, we slapped corporal on everybody and took photos. It's great. And I think USRAC, Sergeant Major Blaisdell, are you doing that too? Raise your hand. Not in there. Hiding out. Okay, good. It's also a check to see who's still in the room. Just checking. Okay, so what else are we going to try to add? We're really trying to say, how can we incorporate warrior task and battle drills before you get promoted to sergeant? We've already put it in 350-1. You're all supposed to do it every year. But how do we do that check? What's the check on that? The check would be, you're going to go in your digital job book and say, in my digital job book, I have done my warrior task and battle drills. I am ready to be a sergeant. You would want everybody to be able to do these tasks. And one time, believe it or not, I'm not going to tell you where I was, because then it would tell you who said it to me. So it's like, Sergeant Major, we don't have time to do this. These warrior tasks and battles, okay. Well, one of those tasks is react to contact. One of those tasks is put on a tourniquet. So I said to the person that said that, I said, okay, the soldier running up to you, you're wounded in combat, they don't know how to put on a tourniquet. That's what you're saying you don't have time to do. I just want to make sure I understand that correctly. And they're like, okay, well, maybe not, Sergeant Major. So what I'm saying is, these things we need to be able to do. You're doing them. We just want to codify those as we go and we promote to the sergeant. And we say, this is the basic skills that you know. We're not there yet. That's what we're working on this year for the Corporal Initiative, and that'll be tied to promotion to sergeant. Okay, go back. That's what, you really should have brought my glasses. Financial literacy. So we already talked about the expert soldier badge, the financial literacy. Let's click on that. So we're implementing financial training at the basic leader course. So a couple of years ago, I put this on the slide. I really didn't know. I really want to thank Tradoc and Robin Morazic. I always mess up her name. She's really from the G9 shop. She is so much full of energy, and she really gives a really good, she is the lead for this for the Army. And Tradoc has implemented this already in the basic leader course. And we're going up and do financial training all the way through the Sergeant Major's Academy. What I found, going back to what I was trying to say, I found 2 years ago, for enlisted, we never talked about it. We never talked about financial training. Hey, how do I do this? And it really hit me is when we talked about when we started going out for the blended retirement. I said, we have to be able to talk about this, and when do we formally get educated on financial training? And we found there wasn't. We had the resources, you could go to it, but you weren't required to do it. So we put it in PME. That's step one. And it's going to be all throughout all the PME. But over to the left of this slide, you're going to see that the National Defense Authorization Act, by law, told us we had to do these tasks. You have to do financial training every time you have one of these events. I will say that again very slowly, all the young NCOs in the room. You are required to do financial training on everything it says in that block. That is in the National Defense Authorization Act, that's law that you are required to do. You're not doing it. I need you to do that. That's why we're actually teaching some of this at PME. And when I think of financial literacy, and the topic that came up yesterday in the family forum was about food insecurity. And I said there's 2 points of food insecurity. One is, are we paying you enough? So that's a question of pay. But then, if I pay you more money and you don't know how to manage your money, you know, if you go with, yes, I have this really nice Corvette, I've got a really nice house, and I can't buy food. Well, we're giving you enough money, but you don't have the food. That is not always the case. And I'm not saying that's what's happening. What I'm saying is we have to look at both. Are you getting enough money for your family? And if you are, how are you managing your money? And those are the classes that we have. But everybody else, right here, when a soldier gets promoted, you are required to give them a class on financial literacy. What do you do with that money? You just got paid. Do you save it? Do you do this? Do you invest it? Same thing, divorce, birth of a child, transition. I just want to throw those out because a lot of people don't know that. Okay, think. Go back. Okay. Highly trained, disciplined, and let's talk about discipline and Fort Hood just very quickly. We're not going to go in this slide. Okay, on Fort Hood, that rolled out last December, and I think there are plenty of conversations about what's going on with that, but we have had some action. And sometimes we actually don't know what we did as an Army. Like, Sergeant Major, we put this out, but we all know exactly what happened. And somebody said, well, we need to change this. And it's like, yeah, we did. So we actually have a civilian in charge of the CID now. That was announced about 30 days ago. And the goal, and one of the things that came out of Fort Hood, the independent review, was do we need a better mix, a more stabilized civilian force in the criminal investigation division? And we are now going to a 60-40 mix. So in other words, it's going to be 60% civilians and 40% military. We still need the military. That actually has already been rolled out. That's an action that's already completed. These are the things that we're doing based off the Fort Hood Independent Review. The second one, the Sharp Fusion Pilot, that is out there. That's going. It's already been announced. The Cohesion Assessment Team, that's also been announced. The goal for those cohesion assessment teams are to say that we're going to do 12 of those a year. So I just want to give you an update that we did this independent review. There were a whole bunch, there were 9 findings, 70 recommendations. That is an ongoing piece for the Army. We didn't forget about it, and it's still there, and we still have the People First Task Force that looks at those initiatives. Okay, let's go into the next one. Mental, and let's talk about fitness. So what we are doing on fitness, we have some great programs that are already out there. And we heard about it yesterday, the holistic health and fitness. Now I want to describe to everybody, I keep saying fitness. I've said it several times already. I said highly trained, disciplined, and fit. I did not say physical fitness. And everybody automatically thinks, oh, Sergeant Major, you're only talking about this physical thing. When I actually talk about TIMS and I talk about highly trained, disciplined, and fit, I do it deliberately. And on the slide, it says mental fitness first. And I do that deliberately. So I don't think you can be fit if you're not mentally fit. I think it's hard for me to be physically fit. It's hard. It would be really difficult if I'm not feeling right mentally to get up and say, okay, let's go run. Let's go run that 10 miles. That takes some mental resiliency to do that. And that's where we need to start, but we don't. We're working on it, but this is what I'd ask you. How many times do we, at the end of a physical fitness that we do every day, right? Everybody got up and ran 4 miles this morning? Nobody? Yeah, like 3 in the front row, okay. And somebody over here. Okay. So everybody got up and did something today, hopefully, physical. At the end of that physical fitness, did you practice your mental resiliency? Did you do some deep breathing? Did you clear your mind and try to think about nothing? Or what are the positive things in your life? Or did you just think about all the things you got to do? Where am I going next? What's going on? Oh, I got to give this speech. Oh, I got to do the media roundtable. Oh, I got to talk to SMA Daily. No, clear your mind and say, what's good in my life? We don't do that enough. We got to get behavioral health right, but it asks us all to practice good mental resiliency. That will help you with the physical, the social, and all the other aspects of the holistic health and fitness. But we don't practice that on a daily basis. So what are we doing about it? We've gotten some classes. We're implementing classes on mindfulness. There's a couple articles out there. I'm not going to explain that to you completely. We're doing mindfulness training. We defined MRTs, and Sergeant Major talked about that, I think, yesterday. That's on the mental resiliency, but other things we're doing is looking at, can we give you some certifications on what you do? And that's the physical piece of the fit is tactical strength and conditioning facilitators, and that's going to be coming soon. We have a long way to go on mental resiliency and not just go behavioral health. So I think behavioral health is one of those things which you go to when you always need to go to and you get a tune-up. That's not a bad thing. It's good. It's hope. But how do we do those everyday mental touch points on resiliency? And that's where I think in the next year I'm trying to focus in on. Okay, can you go back? And then go. Okay, we're doing a comprehensive body composition study. I'll fly to Fort Bragg next week. A lot of people said, hey, what were you going to do for body composition? Initially, if you heard me say this 2 years ago, I said nothing. How big do you want us to be? I was hearing the wrong question, though. I'm going to be honest. I told you I'm already going to tell myself several times. This is number 2. All I heard was people like, man, we're already obese. There's a study out on that for REN. And said, man, how much bigger do we want to be? And I said, no, I'm not going to look at that. But I wasn't hearing the right question. The right question was, according to the height and weight tables, do I have that weight right? Which is completely different. We're not looking to increase, the body fat percentages. But do we have the height and weight correctly? That's a different question, right? And I would use myself as an example. I was 5'10". I'm a young, ranger going to the next class. And they're like, okay, Sergeant Grinson, you got to get tape. Okay. Like 1 pound overweight in the height tables. I was 5'10", maybe 186. I think I was allowed 185. I taped at, some body fat percentage less than the Army standard. So I was good. I was good. But why would I have to be taped? That was the question that I wasn't hearing correctly. do we have the height and weight tables? We're going to look at all of it. That's going to start next week. We're not drilling down to that. But when you look at physical fitness, when it pertains to these, we already talked about the mental resiliency, I already talked about this. There's one thing that I say when I think about height and weight tables that we don't talk about very often. And that's one of those things we are really working on, and the G4 is really taking us on with MCOM, is nutrition. So please. So it's amazing that in 2021, that I cannot pay for my breakfast, lunch, and dinner with a credit card. I don't know why you would clap. That's terrible news. But I swear I'm going to get it, right? Sergeant Major Sellers, we're getting it this year, right? He said, Sergeant Major, on the record, we were going to get this. I'm like, yay. You know, the funny part is, you know, I love being in the Sergeant Major Army. The funny part is I can go downtown and they won't take cash. And I go to the DFAC, and then I'm like, I don't have any cash, and I want to eat in the DFAC. It's like, sorry, we don't take credit cards. I was like, okay, we can do this. Challenged them. And then the second one was, why did it take so long to get to the DFAC? There's a line forever. Why can't I just scan the card? I got to put it in, do my code, give me scan to the face, take my temperature, blood type, and then I can go in and get my food. We finally now just go in, take your ID card, go boop, and then walk in the DFAC. Maybe one day in the future, we'll just go in and go boop, and then it will charge me. I don't know. We're not there yet. Please don't quote that. We're working on that. But at least in this year, when you go in, you can actually pay with a credit card. That's one of those things. That has nothing to do with the food. But getting through the dining facilities has a lot to do with how can I we are busy, right? It's sometimes that access and time I want to get to. That's just the piece we're working on. But we're also working on the food. We want to have good food when I go to the DFAC, not just whatever's available. So we increased the basic daily food allowance, and we said, hey, we're going to go over that. And then every time I go, I said, why don't we talk about eating healthy, but if I go to the salad bar and there's no protein, there's no fresh chicken or something to help me eat healthy, that's not healthy. Therefore, I'm not going to the DFAC. So we are working on that. We do a monthly meeting on how we can make the dining facilities better. And every quarter, I chair that meeting with every food service warrant and every sergeant major who does food service in the Army. And we're going to get the nutrition right. So if you haven't been in the DFAC lately, I'd ask you to go in there and say, and if it's not what you believe it should be, and if you're, a sergeant major in this room, fix it. If they don't have anything or everything that you expect them to have, I want you to immediately stop and say, our soldiers deserve quality food right now, and tell them to fix it. And if you need some help from the Department of the Army, you let us know. We chair that meeting every month, and we will do our absolute best because our soldiers need and deserve great food in the dining facility. Okay, we're working on it. Go back. Okay, quality of life. We've talked about these. But we're going to dig into them very quickly. Yesterday in the Family Forum, we didn't even talk about this, but I will highlight what we've done for housing. We did pass the all tenant Bill of Rights. They're all there, and they're all at all 44 installations. I think last week we were at 37 and 44 to have the Bill of Rights at every installation. Then we weren't there yet, and we just kind of got them at all 44 installations where we had privatized housing. We just got that done. They spent $2.9 billion of their money to get better housing. We got $1.5 billion going into our government housing. We are still on track to spend $9.6 billion, I just got it rounded up, on barracks. And what I told everybody 2 years ago, and I'm going to tell you again, and I'm going to tell you next year the exact same thing. If there's one focus in housing that I'm going to be and go and do, is going to be the barracks. This should not be a surprise. I told you this 2 years ago. And then you thought, he really won't go into my barracks. And you think, Sergeant Major of the Army is here, and let's show him this room. I am going to go that way because I want to see where your soldiers live. I'm telling you right now. It's like, why would the Sergeant Major Army need to do this? That's where our soldiers live. And the same thing about the DFAC is that every soldier deserves a quality place to live in, free of mold and any other thing that you could think of. This comes in two parts. My part is to get you the money and fix your building. The second piece is, once I give it to you, you got to clean it. You got to keep it maintained. And there are some fantastic initiatives out there for the barracks. Sergeant Major Pitt? He's AWOL too? Okay, that's fine. We're taking a list. TJ Holland, did we at least get him? Oh man, FORSCOM. Hey, everybody give FORSCOM Sergeant Major a round of applause. Okay. Okay, Sergeant Major Pitt, in June we had a conference. And we challenged all the nominous sergeant majors that said, hey, we need to do better with our housing, our barracks. And Sergeant Major Pitt said, I check my barracks all the time. I said, so what? That's what you do with the Sergeant Major Army, right? You take the visit sergeant and say, well, so what? And he's like, ah. And he goes, but he took that challenge. I said, what are you doing? What is it? You're there, but what are you doing when you're there? He took it as a challenge, and I'm telling you, it's a great news story. He said, he developed a QR code with questionnaires where the sergeant goes in and he goes, okay, I scanned that I go in and the lights are out, or this is done. Oh, by the way, I stopped this from happening. And we can see that there has been a marketed change in how those barracks had been maintained. And then the incidents, believe it or not, the incidents actually went up. And someone's like, oh, Sergeant Major, that's bad. It's not. They were probably already happening. You just didn't know it was happening because you weren't there. And so I really like it. It's helping us see ourselves. That goes back to how do we maintain a barracks. So please, I'm telling you, I need you all to continue to go through the barracks. And it's not about harassing our soldiers. It's providing a good quality of life for them to live in. And our focus, mine right now, is the barracks still. Healthcare, spent a lot of time on the Exceptional Family Member Program. We talked about that at the Family Forum yesterday. We got a lot of emphasis on that. We're going to continue to do those small town halls when we go out. I'm getting a lot of great information, and we're really helping with this. One of those is the online system that we just rolled out. We should have out, and you can go in. We're really trying to get this a lot better for our families. It's really frustrating. We put a lot of emphasis on that. And the online program should come in so that you can just go in the data and say, here's my family, you could fill it out. And then hopefully you wouldn't have to fill it out 2 years from now, especially for those that have that problem and it's just not going to go away. COVID vaccine mandate, and we're just going to keep going with that. So that's out. The Secretary of Defense told you to do it, so it should be fairly simple. What I said yesterday, and I will say it again, on the COVID vaccine mandate, maybe you weren't in there. I said, imagine I had a really good body armor. I mean, it was really good. And you said, I don't want it. And I said, no, you're going to take it and you're going to wear it. And you go, no, I don't want it. It may not prevent you from dying, right? The body armor may not. It may go through the body armor, I don't know. You know what happens, or something else happens. We've all been there. Well, a lot of us, the front row, we've been there, right? Those things happen in combat. That body armor may not do everything, but what if I didn't give it to you? What if I didn't make it mandatory to you wear that body armor? What kind of person would I be? I said, I could protect you. I could give you every resource that I had. It may not stop it, but where would we be if I didn't make you wear that body armor? Would you be able to call the family member and say, hey, I had this piece of kit, but I didn't make you wear it? No one would want to make that call, would you? That's kind of how I feel about the vaccine. Okay. Child care, we're still working on this, 9 new facilities. I'm going to be honest, the child care right now is not a product of buildings. We need the workers. Every child development center I have gone to, every one of them have said, I am not at max capacity because I cannot hire enough child workers to work in this facility. And then we said, well, we need spouse employment. We've got to make this easier. If you're moving from one CDC location to the next and you want to keep working as a CDC, you're going to get approved before you get there. But we've also incentivized to pay a little money. If you bring another worker in there, we're going to give you some money because we need the workers to work in the child development centers because we're not max capacity. We need your help with that. We also incentivize the family care homes. So especially where we need those are drill sergeants and recruiters, but we need them everywhere, mostly drill sergeants, probably not recruiters. So if I need out of cycle time for a child development center to be open, we can't open the whole facility we could, but it's not cost effective. To open a whole facility for 1 or 2 children, we got to turn the lights, we're going to bring certain support staff there. So if we do that at midnight, and hopefully, that's not something we want to do. We do have a 24-hour child care, I think, at Fort Jackson, but where we tried to do that in other places, it wasn't that we didn't want to do it, we just didn't have the children to do it. The answer to that is family child care homes. So a family on the base says, I want to open up my home and I can have child care, it's approved home business. We're going to give you $1,000 if you start one of those. That's a bonus. And then if you move, we're probably going to give you another $1,000. I think that's the program right now. So when we need you to do this, that actually helps us with our child care homes, and that's one of those things we're working on really hard. And that also helps us out with spouse and employment. But we also, if you move from state to state and your spouse needs to get relicensed, we pay $1,000 back if it costs you to get relicensed. So what we really want, and that's where we're still going in the future, what we really want is state reciprocity. So if I'm a behavioral health specialist and I'm in Washington and I go to Kentucky, I don't need to get relicensed. I'm in the federal system and then I'm already there. But until then, we will reimburse if you have to get a license because you moved up to $1,000. It was $500, we increased it by $1,000. Okay, next. PCS moves. Well, I didn't know COVID was going to happen. We've really worked hard with PCS moves, and then now we found we can't get enough workers. It's still there. We did increase the personally procured move, and believe it or not, we did not pay you. If you wanted to move all your household goods yourself, we only paid you 85% of what we'd pay the movers. And I still remember this conversation. I'm saying, it was like, Sergeant Major of the Army. I'm like, hey, why? We're all sitting there going, why would we only pay 85%? And it's like, oh, well, and I said, I bet it's cheaper to allow you to do a personally procured move and give you 100%. They're like, yeah, it makes sense. We approved that. Actually, the Chief of Staff of the Army and the MNRA, I think G4 has been the lead. The G4 has been the lead. General Gamble, we got that across. We also added inspectors. They shouldn't just come out and go, hey, any issues with my PCS, here, give me a call. We gave them a checklist, and they need to come out and not just go, hey, if they're throwing your stuff off the back porch, give us a call. They come out and they should have a checklist and go, okay, are you doing this, this, and this, and this? We're really trying to increase the quality of our PCS moves. We are not there yet. COVID hit, and we've done a lot of things to help with the PCS moves. But some of those things with COVID kind of set us back. We didn't know we weren't getting the workers. And that's why we extended, you can now go past 20 days past your report date. They give you even more time, and sometimes it's because of the move. And I'd ask you all, here's one thing I will ask you for your help. If you have a soldier that is struggling with a move, be a good leader and jump in and find out exactly what they need help with. And don't just send them to the travel regulation or the PCS people and then go over there. And then the soldier does, I called it yesterday, unnatural acts to get to their next duty station, and then we find out about it later. And it's like, well, I left my spouse there, and then I just went to the next duty station. She's going to have to pack up the household goods all by herself, and then the movers didn't show, so she's going to do it like she's going to put the stuff in the van, and then she's going to get in the vehicle, drive from Washington State to go to Fort Bragg because I'm going to JRTC. Okay, don't do that. And you find soldiers doing that, sometimes they don't even tell you. If you find somebody doing that, say stop. Go back. We'll fix the orders, we'll get you wherever you need to be. But when you find soldiers struggling with that, please just go back and let's do the right thing. The policy's not going to fix that. We need engaged leaders. The one thing we are working on with PCS Move is to increase the weight allowance. That is a DOD policy, and we got to get all the services to agree. So we're still working on that. And one of the things that we proposed was, you know, do you get it by a rank and then family members? So if I'm a sergeant and I have 4 family members, would I get, you know, 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds more per family member because I just got more family? So that's one of our proposals. We do have to get all the service to agree. We're going to keep banging on this, so that's our goal. And one of those things, also for sergeant majors, to increase your weight allowance to somewhat match a lieutenant colonel. So lieutenant colonel, I believe, gets 17,000 pounds. We were capped at E9 for 15,000 pounds. So, and then as you got through life and then you got the motorcycle and the boat and something else, you usually capped out. And everybody says, well, you didn't go overweight. Yeah, because I threw half of my stuff away. So we're not doing that, so we're trying to do that. So we're working on it all the way from E1 to E2, E3, based on family, all the way to E9, and how we can make a little bit better for you do with your weight allowances for your PCS moves. With that said, current policy still is, if you exceed your weight, you can request a waiver all the way up to 18,000 pounds. That is a current existing policy right now, today, that exists. Goes up to the G4. So before you start paying out of your pocket for that PCS move, we can approve up to 18,000 pounds in your move. So the G4 might just get a few more requests after that, but I just throw that out there. So that is allowed, and that is a current policy. I just want to make sure everybody's tracking, but that's what we're working on. Okay, next. And reception companies. I think this is really a good news. We really pushed hard on how do we transition. We talked about cohesive teams that are highly trained, disciplined, and fit. But as we look at our quality life, the transitions are hard. Every one of the quality of life initiatives deal with mostly a transition. Now somebody says, well, healthcare. Well, the hard part about healthcare is transitioning to a new post, getting a new provider. Who is going to provide my health care? Where is my spouse going to work now that I moved from this state to that state? I went somewhere else. It's about the transition. I think reception companies help us receive people in our organizations. We're going to authorize those positions. You get a small or a large installation, you'll have more authorizations. And somebody says, well, we already have those right now, but they're not authorized. So you're taking it out of hide. You're pulling a sergeant first class out of somewhere from a platoon to go do that job, and now we're going to authorize you to do that in the Army. What I need you to do, if you're in the room and a leader, is pick your absolute best to run the reception companies. We're going to look into how we can codify this to board guidance as a first sergeant, because that's how important this is. When you go to a special mission unit, you're going to have the absolute best in those platoons when you transition. Would that be correct? So we need to do the exact same thing. When I arrive at that installation, that's my first impression about that unit. If I got a bad, this actually happened. I'm not going to tell you where. It actually happened. So I go there and I said, let's go to the reception company. And I go in the room, and they were doing something with this paper. Like, what are they doing with paper? And I'm like, oh, well, that's the key. I said, it doesn't look like a key. It looks like a piece of paper. And they said, yeah, we don't have enough keys for the room. So what does that say about your installation if somebody says, I can't give you a key the first day you're here at my new post? That's what I mean. When soldiers arrive to your organization, they can go, wow, I am now part of something special. They're going to see this, wonderful commander, you got second time command, great person that knows how to take care of people, and we're going to give you, all these things, and I'm helping. But I need you to put the right people there, and those are the leaders in the room. Somebody said it, I think Force Comm Sergeant Major said it this morning. He goes, I was the 101st Division Sergeant Major, and I hand-selected my reception company, first sergeant. That's the kind of level of people we need to put at those reception companies. I'm giving you the authorizations. I need all the senior leaders to get the right people in those authorizations. That represents you and the first impression on your installation. That's how important I think it is. Next. And the moment we've all been waiting for. The question for, everybody in the whole room on the back is, okay, talent management. Let's talk about OML. Okay, I'm going to put all my slides down. I'm good. Okay, let's go ahead and click on it, jump in. Something about jumping in a pool when it's cold water, you just kind of jump in. So we rolled out, we said we're going to do an order of merit list. This is the first year that we were going to do it, and we rolled it out, and we had a few hiccups. And we didn't realize, I did not realize that we had issues. I failed to monitor the process appropriately, especially for the Master Leader course. So the OML came out, and it was OML based. You did really good. You got one, one to whatever, and you go down. So that list came out. But before that, the OML came out, we still had to send soldiers to school, and we were doing that off of the old system. And the old system, when I got promoted, how was that ranked ordered? Anybody know? Everybody in this room should know. Time in grade, time in service. So we were sending soldiers to school based off time in grade and time in service. And then we have a new system called the Order Merit List, which is not based off time in service, time in grade. And when I say I failed to monitor that we were still, for about 2 to 3 months, sending people to school based off of the old system. That's number one. And number two is what we saw was in the system, we'll use one MOS, 42s. 42 say you had a requirement to send 10 people to school. Well, we saw in the system you'd sent 10 people to school. So when we got ready for the next month to send people to school, did we send anybody for a 42 to go to school? No. But it was the number 1 and number 2 on the OML. So we did not give the slots to certain MOSs based off of the amount of folks that we had trained, but we did not realize that that did not go hand in hand with the OML. So last month when we promoted, now there are some legitimate reasons for you to be skipped on the OML. Okay. The one would be you're flagged. So, yeah, you did something wrong. Yeah, you're still on the OML and you are flagged. We're not going to promote you. So we're still not going to promote you. There may be other reasons. You didn't do your distance learning course. You didn't do this. But what we did find, and it took me a while, and I apologize. My fault. That's why I didn't want to talk about it yesterday. Don't blame anyone on the stage from yesterday. You blame right here. The buck stops with me. We skipped people that were higher on the OML that were school trained. That actually is the step process. Select, train, educate, promote. What I failed to realize is that we had not sent number 1 to, if not number 1, I have no idea. I didn't go line by line for everybody in the MOS. We didn't send MOS number 1 right in the bat, as soon as we got the OML, number 1 goes to school. In some MOSs, oh, sir.
Hey, Sergeant Major, how you doing?
Oh, awesome, sir. How you doing? You got the Chief of Staff down.
Hey, I just want to stop by and
feet.
say hello. Everything's going down, okay? Hey, how you doing, Sergeant
Sir,
Major?
good. How are you?
Hey, go ahead. Sit down. Please sit down. Hey, I heard this is the Sergeant Major's initiative group.
Yeah.
Getting together, coming up with some new ideas. So I've got an initiative I'd like to kind of pass out and see if we can work this. And the initiative is, if you are selected as the NCO of the year, and you can't go to school because you're participating as the NCO of the year, I think that deserves a waiver. We should promote him right now. What do you think?
I guess that'd be all right.
All right, bring him on up here. We're going to do that right now. Come on up here. Go to school because he was participating in the Warrior of the Year. So I think that's fair, right? Go ahead and do it, son.
Well, we're not going to read any orders because we didn't know any of that, but take off your jacket. And I had this handy. It just so happened I have one of these. You were feeling left out yesterday, weren't you?
We're going to take care. So we had to do something here. So we got this all figured out. Pretty cool. Yeah.
It's the perfect timing in my speech, by the way. You probably give that to the guy that got promoted yesterday. Okay, congratulations. Yeah. Sir, thank you.
Yeah, we'll get a picture. We'll give you dispensation for 5 seconds. Hold your breath. Be all right?
That's awesome. One more time.
All right, one more time. Hey, thank you. Just real quick. I just truly appreciate what our non-commissioned officers are doing for the United States Army. This has been a challenging year, but everything that you've done has just been miraculous. And I could not be more proud than serve with each and every one of you. So I just want to say thanks, okay? Appreciate it. All right.
Hey, sir, awesome.
I'll let you get back to work.
No. On your feet. Hey. You know, when I say I really love my squad, I actually really love my squad. Wasn't that awesome? I don't, first of all, you don't have the chief of staff in your unit, and you can say, hey, why don't we promote him? And he goes, yeah, let's do it. So, that's just, I really do. When I say I love my squad, that's why, because I got, the best squad in the world. And when we, Chief Dixon Carter, I mentioned you earlier. Because we do things like that. And it's, when he says, a lot of times we get, whatever you say about people first, he truly means it. And then that's it right there. He was busy. He was out doing an event. And I said, sir, maybe you can come do this. And then, he just walks in and does it. And that, I couldn't thank him enough for what he does. And plus, he interrupted this conversation. Okay, so we might just close it out on this one right here. So I really wish I'd gotten through this and then ended on a positive note of the promotion, and then we could ask for questions. So we're going to get to questions like in 2 seconds. But I do want to clarify this point. So I made a mistake, but what are we going to do about it? So next month, we're going to do temporary promotions. So, and Master Leader course. For the Master Leader course, if you're on the OML, we're going to promote right off the OML if there's a requirement. If you're on the OML, we're not promoting everybody on the OML. Don't walk out and go, I'm on the OML, I'm get promoted. Not true. Based off of requirements that we need in the Army for that month, you will get promoted based off the OML. And it will be a temporary promotion. You will get, if you're number one and for some reason you were skipped, the only reason you were skipped, not because you weren't eligible for promotion, not because you weren't flagged, you did all your DLC, the only thing you were missing was PME. We're going to give you a temporary promotion for 1 year. You still got to go to school. What we're already finding is because we figured this out, they may have already gone to school, or they may be in school now, and you may not even have to catch up too much. But we're also going to increase the slots and authorizations so we can get ahead of the OML, so you will get to school before, and we don't have this issue in the future. We are going to make the correction. We're not going to go back and unpromote everybody. That's not going to happen. Step happened, and I stick by it. We identify the problem, and next month we're going to promote off the OML on the authorizations that we require if you meet the proper requirements other than PME, you'll get a temporary promotion. And that's how we're going to address that. We're going to look at that only MLC right now. Next month, we're going to do a quick deep dive to see are there any other issues to make sure we got those right. We don't think it's like the MLC because it's all MOSs into one, but we're going to look at it to make sure that we get that right too. It's something new we did. I made a mistake, and we're going to try to fix it. And if there's any other thousands of questions on that, we can address that. Yes, next slide. If there's anything else. Okay. Very quickly, we won't even dive into that. We're doing the first sergeant assessment. We're looking at talent management, or we will dive into it very quickly. First sergeants, you'll be assessed to be a first sergeant. It's going to be binding. You're going to go through assessment at your camp, post, and station. You're not going to go to one place for all the Army. We got to figure out how that's going to transition. The goal is that timeline on the bottom is to have the first sergeant assessment fully operational by 2023. So next year we'll get that kind of worked out. So by October 23, when you see a first sergeant, they have been assessed from a program. And one of the things, if you look it depends on how you're looking at it, on the right where it says first sergeant assessment, those are the things that we're assessing. It's not just, hey, congratulations, you're a first sergeant, you got a records review, physical fitness, and the ELET, which is not explained, is an enlisted leader evaluation tool where you can go in, and we're still trying to figure out, like, how do the soldiers come in and give feedback? Was this a good person or not? And then how does that assess? Well, the more automation would help us so that we just don't have to go out and personally hand select each one and say, could you please give us feedback? And that's what we're doing for the officers. So there will be an evaluation. They'll come in, there'll be a blind board, and they'll do a battery, meaning they'll do a test online. And this will be your first sergeants. And that's how we're getting better leaders in your organizations. We do the same thing, and it will be binding this year for the brigade sergeant majors. In November, they will go through an assessment. There'll be a board, and then they will go to Fort Knox, and they will be assessed. If they assess appropriately and they're ready, they will be a brigade sergeant major starting next year. Okay, next or last. Next slide. There you go. We will now open it up for the wonderful questions. I got Sergeant Mr. Mansker. He's going to help me out with cards. He's going to come join me up here. And then Sergeant Rainier is monitoring the internet. And then there's microphones out here. So we have about 18 minutes to answer all the questions that you always wanted from your Sergeant Major of the Army, the newest staff sergeant in the United States Army. He's still grinning, by the way.
Is this on? Can you hear me?
No. Try it again.
How about now?
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks again, Sergeant Major, by the way, for the promotion. So I had a question for you about cohesive teams. How can I, as a non-commissioned officer, balance the traditional importance of uniformity in the Army while still recognizing and valuing our soldiers' individuality and their diversity? Personally, I run into this issue a lot where I'm trying to appear fair and balanced, but at the same time use different leadership styles depending on each of my soldiers' individual needs. I was just curious if you had some insight.
Okay. That's a really good question. And I think I learned best through my failures. I used to say, and there's probably and there may be somebody in here who still believes this, and they'll say to you, all I see is green, one standard. Has anybody ever said that in this room before? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Here's what somebody said to me one time about a year ago. He said, when you say that to me, you're not acknowledging when I take the uniform off, I will be treated differently. I mean, think about that. So I said, hey, I don't see the problem. I treat you the same. And it was true. I treated everybody the same. But that doesn't mean we're the same. If I wasn't, as a leader, I wasn't even acknowledging that this person would be struggling when they drive out the gate, or somebody wouldn't serve them in a restaurant, or whatever would happen. And that's how I would deal with it, is everybody is an individual, but start with there are standards and discipline in the Army. That is our foundation. You joined the Army. We didn't join you. So you want to be a part of our organization. Here's the Army values and our standards and our discipline. That is the foundation. But there are other things that are your foundation. And as a leader, you need to know that. You need to acknowledge it and then recognize it. And don't ignore it. And I'll give you another example. And I didn't do this. But others would say, well, when all these, the social unrest that was happening in our country was going on, somebody said, don't talk about this here. Right? That's the all I see is green moment, right? Don't talk about this in my organization. I don't want to hear that. But what was happening inside is I'm dealing with all this rage and pain right here, right now, and you won't even acknowledge it as a leader. I don't think that's the way you should do that. Just acknowledge it, and then let's have this conversation. But don't have it with one side, have it with both. That's actually one of the board questions we had for you this year, right? And some of you remember, like, Sergeant Major, yeah, you tubed it. So he's looking at, don't make eye contact, you're good. So if you have two people, bring them in together. They may disagree, but have the conversation. Don't get an argument. Maybe it is an argument, but that's what families do, right? Families don't always agree. I think that's where I would go, is you may struggle with this, but don't ignore it. Bring it in. Let's have a discussion. And maybe you walk out and said, I disagree with you. And somebody in here during the board probably disagreed with me. And that's okay, because that's what families do. But we didn't ignore it. We walk about it and we talk about those differences, but then we go back to the Army values. And say, here's our Army values. This is what we believe in my organization, in my squad. Yes or no? Not about the Army. I know, crazy, it says the Sergeant Major Army, right? About us, in my squad, how are we going to treat each other? Is that correct? Here's the Army values. That's our base. But how are we going to treat each other? And the more we do that, I think that the better you would be, and that's how I would handle that situation. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. Okay, good. Thank you. Next. You got somebody else in the room. Sergeant Major Tarinas. I feel like I'm being set up for failure now.
SMA Mario Tarinas, Mountain Tough. Through the direction...
Climb the gory.
To the top, sorry, SMA. Through the direction of 18 Airborne Corps and their guidance, and then the help of the TRADOC team, we're able to do 3 real pilots of what we now called, or coined, I think we got it, the E3B for our badging for EFMB, ESB, and EIB. And we've had pretty good success. So the question is, as we looked at what we've done or what the team at the 10th Mountain Division has done with it, is there a way or is there an initiative of what we're going to do for the rest of the Army, SMA?
Yeah, it's coming. My goal is to have that complete by 2023, that when you do any badge, it will just be the expert badge, the E3B. That's where you're going to be the father of it. We'll say Sergeant Major Tarinas is the father of V3B. That's okay. Or Sergeant Major Andrews. You guys do a coin toss or something. So Mario's good. Okay, you're it. So forevermore, you're the one that did this. So yes, that's the whole goal. We talk about highly trained soldiers. That's it. Giving people more soldiers more chances to do the expert soldier badge. That is going to be the way of the Army. It's our job to get you there, to get the policy, the procedures. That's why the same thing with the corporal initiative. You go in your job book, you get it, you get it, you get it, and then you go to the test lane, and hopefully you earn your appropriate badge. So that's the future. And anytime, we just got to bring that. I don't think there's needs to be one proponent, because we have a headquarters for that. It's called TRADOC. So TRADOC would just be the lead, and then when we do one, we have the opportunity to do all, and that will be the standard for the Army in the future. Yes. Okay. Sergeant Major, or Sergeant Rainier, give me one from somewhere not in the room.
SMA, what discussions, if any, are being had at your level about increasing duty station stability or longevity? My spouse's #1 input when discussing my career is how often we'll have to move and when.
So good, the HRC Sergeant Major's here, and he's heard me say this. We really don't want to move people. You have the option. It's in there. We still checked, right? There's a button that says stabilization. So when you come into the enlisted marketplace, when it opens up and you do not want to move, please don't ignore it and will it, inshallah, and then we're going to move you. So you should go in there and please click on stabilization. That's number one. Our goal is not to move people just to be moving people. We want you to stabilize. We're trying to find ways to get you to go back. And one of those things, and we're not there yet, so don't walk out and say, yeah, we're going to do this. But this is one of the things I want to do. We need you to be drill sergeants. I already talked about please remember, the staff sergeant piece, you got 2 years here. I'm really working on that to get you to the next duty location. But what about if I could say you're going to be a drill sergeant at Fort Sill, but I'm going to take you back to your exact same location? That's what we're trying to do. We've got some already doing that. So the officers, I think you can go to the captain career course and you don't actually have to PCS. You can go there, captain's career course, and come back. That's kind of the model that we're trying to go to if you want to stabilize at that location. Some people don't want to. We're trying to get those initiatives on how we can do that, but we still have this thing called the Army and the requirements. I do have to fill the drill sergeants. We do have to fill recruiters. We do have to fill SFABs. We do still want you to go to SF selection. All those things, if you want to. But how can we stabilize you? And same thing, we're looking at Fort Irwin. Would you go there and then you go back to some other location that you would want to go? So that's all on the table, and that's how we're trying to address the stabilization. Next question. Yeah.
Estimate the question from the field, the leaders in the field, is you've described what a cohesive team is, but how do we measure and quantify what a cohesive team is?
Yeah, and Sergeant Major Orvis is in here because he was the initial brunt of all this. And for the record, the father of Tim's was Brian Flum, another wonderful MP. But the one that really drove this for the Army was Sergeant Major Orvis, who's with us right now. And we asked that question, and it's hard. How do I measure a cohesive team? What does that look like? We're trying to find things that are positive, but we always go, for some reason, we still go to the negative, right? We want, we measure how many suicides a unit has, how many sexual assault a unit has. Those are all negatives. But what are the positives that we can measure and do? If you have more positive, are there less of the negative? Do you have a higher, if we could actually do your ACFT scores right now, if you had a higher ACFT average, does that actually equate to less suicides? If I have a higher this, so that's the point of our monthly summit. So we do a monthly, if you're a CSM of an installation, so the 18th Airborne Corps has Senior Mission Command Authority for Bragg. This is worldwide. We come in and we say, these are the things we think are positive that we want to measure that says this is a cohesive team. And what we're trying to do is correlate that to reduce the negative. And it's not as easy because if I have a higher ACFT or I have higher rifle marksmanship, does that actually mean I have less domestic violence? Maybe is it chance? We don't know. But that's how we're trying to measure it. Take the positive things that units have, how do we measure that? And then we're trying to put the correlation between the two. And that's what we're doing in the monthly Sergeant Major Summit that we host, that we actually have data that can help it. But the whole point of data is sometimes, number one, you can get it wrong. That's number one. Number two is that's compliance. What we don't want is I got a data and then be compliant. Now, there is some data that I'm going to say be compliant on, so don't take it as all. But the whole point on driving down those the behaviors that we want to get rid of in the Army is about learning. What did we learn from doing whatever this was over here, and how can we do that throughout the whole Army? And that's what it means to be in a cohesive team. So we're looking at the data. I think we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. Yes?
Estimate from Reddit, What is the recourse for squad leaders when they don't take time to get to know their soldiers because of the op tempo, and or units who create high op tempo that doesn't allow for leaders to get to know their soldiers and build those teams?
Well, I could say, unfortunately, I think we're seeing the recourse. I can't put this together. We're still having a high rate of suicides. And people go, I didn't know. I mean, but I watch, and then, unfortunately, I get every soldier that dies in the Army, I get a notice. I get an email and I read it. And it says, well, soldier committed suicide, and the unit didn't, there were no signs, no symptoms. But mom was calling the unit, right? Mom was calling the unit, trying to get in touch of the unit so that they could go check on her son. And that instantly, this is like in the last 48 hours. That instantly for me says, were you actually doing and building a cohesive team? Why didn't the mom already know the unit's number? So again, that's a very negative. And then what are we going to do with those leaders that don't do that? And that's why we're doing the assessments. The assessment's actually going to start at the NCO at BLC. I think that started 1 October. You're going to get a self-assessment, and out of the assessment, you're going to get whether you're socially aware or you self-aware. And eventually, if you don't do something about it and you don't take that coaching, it's going to be binding, and then we're going to probably ask you to leave the Army. We're not there yet, but that's where we're going with some of the assessments.
The second part of that, units who create high op tempos or overload training calendars and don't allow for time.
Well, I think that's on most of the people, all the leaders in this room. And I would encourage you all, if you're a nominative sergeant major in this room, once again, I said this maybe a couple of years, I'll say it again. Go to a battalion training meeting. And you'll see it. They're still doing it. Just exactly what you just said. So I went to this unnamed location, and I went to a training meeting. And I'll show you what it looked like. And they were really proud. I mean, okay, I didn't pick the unit. They picked the unit. So this is a well-rehearsed, disciplined organization that does training management according to standard, right? They're not going to put the sergeant majors in the Army like, oh, go there, it's going to be terrible. So they don't do that. So trust me, they don't do that. So I look on the schedule and it says, here's the unit. We're going to go do this, and they're going to do this exercise with a ranger measurement, and they're really excited. We're going to do that, and that's going to end on Friday. And then on Monday, we're going to go right back to the field. We're going to do that, and then we're going to do it again. And then it's like 2 weeks later, we're going to come out of the field, and right when we come out of the field, we're going to do a 26-mile foot march. I'm like, that's awesome. Your unit, it was not one of your units. It's like, I said, oh, okay. I asked a question. I said, according to your unit SOP, what is the standard for recovery? And then it hit. And then at that moment, it dawned on the battalion commander that he was not following his own SOP. And he goes, I get it, Sergeant Major, I'm sorry. That's where we need, I need nominative sergeant majors' help with coaching and he's like, yeah, of course, we just do it. Yeah, they told me to do it, I'm doing it. Do you have to, what is your recovery SOP? Does it say throw everything in the Conex on Friday, pick that out on Monday, then go right back to the field, and then you think physically you can get to 26-mile foot march? Or did you probably should tell somebody that's not in accordance with either holistic health and fitness or any recovery SOP that you had established? We are still doing this to ourselves. I think this is at the battalion and company battery troop level. And sergeant majors, nominative sergeant majors, you have the expertise to sit there and see that. I think they can't see it. Because when I said it, it was like the lights went on, things were flashing, and they said, yep, we got to do something about it. We love to fill up. If there's anything white on the calendar, it's like the worst thing in the planet. Trust me, I'm a victim of that. It's like, oh, sergeant major, there's like 1 second on your calendar, so let's put something in there. So, but don't do that. at the company battery troop level. And some organizations are now giving mandatory white space. And I encourage you all to do that. I said, nope, you are not allowed to put anything on the counter so that soldiers could just talk to their people. And I think we got to do more of that. I'm not sure how I implement that through the Army, but I know FORSCOM's working on that, but I'd encourage you all, we need some help with that. Yes, next question.
Any questions from the audience?
We got time, I think, for one more question.
SMA, yesterday you spoke about the golden triangle of cohesive teams. Can you talk about some recommendations how leaders at the company level can implement the golden triangle given the op-tempo over? Kind of a follow-on to that question.
Again, I would just say at the company battery troop level, my recommendation is stand up for your people and do it. And I know it sounds simple. They're like, Sergeant Major, it's easy for you. You're the Sergeant Major of the Army. What I'm about to tell you is actually a true story. I'd schedule training. I put it on my calendar. And then the Ops Sergeant Major called down and said, you got to do this. I said, I'm not doing it. He called me up. I reported to the Sergeant Major. Sergeant Major, I scheduled this training, and the battalion commander had approved my training schedule. And then the last time I checked, you weren't the battalion commander. I did a lot of push-ups. I'm not going to lie. That happened. But that's what I mean is that when you have to tell people that this stuff, doing this is important. Sometimes we're going to always give you all this stuff. You have to say, we all have to do it. We have to say, I need to go check on my soldier's house. I need to make these phone calls. I, as the Sergeant Major of the Army, shut my door, got in my car, and drove to all my soldiers' houses. And it took me about 6 hours. One lived in Maryland, of course, and one lived almost in Richmond. I was like, this is great. So there's a lot of driving that day, and those are high traffic areas if you drive around D.C. But I shut the door, and I told the chief, I said, I'm going. A lot of times we're not even willing to shut the door and tell our boss, this is important for my organization, I'm going to go do it. And I was doing that to set the example for everybody else. And believe it or not, the director of the Army staff did something very similar right after that. And I told the Army, and they all of a sudden everybody started doing it. And it's like, oh, if the Sergeant Major of the Army can go shut his door and go do that, maybe I should be doing it. It goes all the way down to the company battery troop level. First of all, you have to plan it. You got to resource it and say, it's important. I was like, what resources would I need, Sergeant Major? I would probably start with pulling out the DD Form 93. I pulled some of my own DD Form 93s in the office of the Sergeant Major, and the first phone number I called was wrong. And I got a 42 that she could just go in there and fix it. So we have to do it. We have to take time to take care of our soldiers, and you have to put it on, plan it, and then when somebody says, I'm going to go tell you to do this right now, you know, fight whatever you can, tooth and nail. Said, I have put this on the calendar. It's been on there for 6 weeks, and I don't really want to change it. And is it actually the commander or someone else? It's normally somebody else, right? It's usually the 1, the 2, the 3 that comes in and says, well, I need this right now. Yes, you need it, but the commander approved my training or this event. Is it you need it because you didn't do it in time, or does the commander need it? Totally different question. So, number 1, do it. Take care of your people. It doesn't take a lot of time. You know, believe it or not, if you don't have time to go do those small things, you may find yourself consumed with something extremely bad. And it will consume all your time, and you will do it. If you have a deaf in that organization, you will stop everything you're doing. So you might as well stop everything you're doing and call your people and know their families before something really bad happens in that organization. And that's how I would frame it to anybody that says we don't have time to do it. So, with that said, we're going to do some happy thoughts and no more questions. So I really appreciate all that you do. Thank you to SMA Daily and Troy. What a wonderful conference that we had. Thank you all for attending the initiative brief. And next year, we look forward to rolling out all the wonderful things that we're going to do again. We are not done yet. I promised Mr. Mason, that we're going to do a few awards for the Army Emergency Relief. I'd like to do that on stage right now. So I'm proud to be your Sergeant Major of the Army, and I'm extremely proud to be in my squad. Again, I'm really proud and thank General McConville for doing that promotion. So, Mr. Mason. Oh.
Sure, Mr. Mason. I'm going to fill in the rest of your white space.
So, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started with this, let's give our Sergeant Major of the Army a big round of applause. So, we are in good hands, Sergeant Major, and we are on a great path to success to the future. And thank you for all your service, your sacrifice, and your hard work. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct honor of introducing two gentlemen, both of which I've had the honor and privilege to serve with and for in the past. Lieutenant General Retired Mason, the Director of AER, and General Retired John Campbell, the Chairman of the Board of the Army Emergency Relief. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. Well, let me thank the SMA, Sergeant Major Grinston, who is on the board of managers of AER, along with a number of the Sergeant Majors sitting out front here, FORSCOM, AMC, and so on. The slide you had up on quality of life, Sergeant Major, all those things he was hitting on, AER is part of that solution. We can't fix it, but we're part of that. We're a tool in the toolbox. Whether it's child care, whether it's PCS, whether it's spouses relicensing, what have you. Let me also thank Sergeant Major of the Army Daly for carving this out and working into the schedule. We really appreciate it, and to AUSA in general. I've been the director for 5 years. I tell people it's the second best job I ever had in my life. The first was being a battalion commander in the Great 82nd. Pretty tough to beat that. Our mission today is to recognize 3 installations, we'll talk about those in a minute, that went above and beyond the call of duty. We had a great campaign, annual campaign, active duty campaign this year, but we're going to recognize those 3. AER's motto is soldiers helping soldiers. We've been around since 1942. We were stood up by the Chief of Staff of the Army. Who was the Chief of Staff of the Army in 1942? A little quiz. You thought you were just going to sit there. Who was it? George C. Marshall. And the mission statement he gave us was to help relieve financial distress on the force. That was true in 1942. It is absolutely true in 2021. We are part of the Army. I already mentioned a number of the members of the board are active duty. The Vice is on our board. The Chief is on our board of advisors. We have an Army regulation. It's as boring as every other regulation, but that fixes us as part of the Army. Been around 80 years. And in those 80 years, we have helped 4 million members of the Army team. Active duty, retired, medically retired, survivors, reserve, National Guard, and so on and so forth, to the tune of about $2 billion. Where did that money come from? Where did the $2 billion come from? Look to your left and look to your right. This is all soldiers' donated money. We don't get it from anywhere else. It's been donated, those hard-earned dollars. We're just the stewards of it. And we try to do as good a job as we can. Annually, about $70 million. We provide, what's the interest rate we charge on our loans? Check static line, 0. Or a grant, or educational scholarships for spouses and children. For every dollar that's donated, we provide $3 back to the active duty force. How do we do that? Because old retired guys like General Campbell and I, standing to my left, to your right, thus, my left, your right, thus, creating the mirror effect. Sergeant Major, this crowd is too young. They have no idea what that is. The campaign's goal is 100% of soldiers, and hopefully their families, informed of the programs and benefits of AER. Notice I didn't say money. The campaign is not about dollars. I don't care if a soldier donates $1, $5, or whatever. I do care that they do it, because when they donate, they're making a commitment to their squad, they're making a commitment to the team, and the brothers and sisters on their left and right. What bonds this Army together? Soldiers fight for each other. It also goes to the Chief's people first. It's about combat readiness. If a soldier's distracted by something in their life, in this case it's finances, they're probably not focused on their MOS training, they're likely not focused on the unit mission, and if we send them into combat with that distraction, they are potentially a danger to themselves and their buddies on their left and right. What did we find was the most powerful tool against IEDs in Iraq and Afghanistan? Our eyes. They're distracted, might miss it. So look, life happens. Things happen in people's life. Life throws you some curves. AER is there to help with them. And so I'll kind of finish on this. Asking for help is a sign of strength. Easy to say, hard in practice. What did we all learn day one in the Army? You're tough, you can stand on your own feet, you can make it happen. The key to the campaign, Colonel Payne over here from Fort Leonard Wood, I asked him earlier, I said, what was the key to the success on your installation? And they won the medium installation. He said it was non-commissioned officers taking care of soldiers, what the sergeant majors have been talking about for the past hour. It is true of everything in our Army. My dad was an E6 in World War II, got a battlefield commission. He said, take care of soldiers, they'll take care of you. So with that, I'm going to ask Andrew Pike to come up, lead us through the actual award presentation. Sergeant Major, I would be honored if you would join us up here, please.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon. The Army Emergency Relief Global Team has the honor and privilege of helping soldiers and Army families in their time of need since 1942. This legacy continues through the generous donations of active duty and retired soldiers, as well as American corporations and citizens. Today, we recognize the highest performing garrisons and those who went above and beyond in their sense of duty to their local Army community and soldiers around the world. So on behalf of our chairman, General Retired John Campbell, and our director, Lieutenant General Retired Ray Mason, and the SMA who sits on our board, and the entire AER Board of Managers, we are pleased to present awards to the top 3 installations achieving the highest participation rates in the first annual Army Emergency Relief Active Duty Participation Competition. So on behalf of the small garrisons, the winning installation was Presidio of Monterey, who was unable to be here today, and their award will be accepted by General Mason. So,
The weather was so nice in California, they said they're not coming.
That's right, sir. So when they found out what the weather was like here, they just stayed home. So we'll be handing out. So,
Go to Monterey, great job. Give them a round of applause.
all right.
And carrying this next week out to California.
Yes, sir.
Wondered about that. Thanks, Andrew.
Yes, sir. All right. For medium garrisons, consisting of 2,000 to 10,000 active duty soldiers, the winner this year was Fort Leonard Wood with an outstanding percentage of participation. So please come up. Yes, sir. Good job, sir.
Come on up here, stand between myself and the SMA. So one of the folks we have up here is an Army Emergency Relief Officers. They're all members of IMCOM. Is the IMCOM, anybody from the IMCOM team here? Who? We are very fortunate to have partners in Installation Management Command. AER is located in every Army Community Service, over 70 locations around the Army. Of course, the Garrison Leadership Team.
And congratulations, Fort Leonard Wood. And finally, for large garrisons consisting of 10,000 or more active duty soldiers, the winner this year was Fort Jackson. So, Fort Jackson, come on up. Good job, sir.
Go.
Yes, sir. They were all 3 TRADOC. So,
General Funk's bragging rights.
so we want to say. So heartfelt congratulations to the leaders and soldiers of each of these garrisons, and thanks to each and every one of you who donated in the proud tradition of soldiers helping soldiers. Thank you for your time, and with that, it concludes our presentation.
All right, I promise we're almost finished. Whoa, no, not yet. Not till the SMA says dismissed. A couple little admin notes. On your seats, ladies and gentlemen, is a gift from the Office of the Non-Commissioned Officer and Soldiers Programs. These are for you. A wealth of knowledge there in the quotes of the SMA. You can get your official "This Is My Squad" notebook right, in support of the Sergeant Major of the Army. And of course, we all need a little bit of history of the Army in your campaign streamers. Please take those with you. They're great resources to use. So I want to give a big final round of applause to the organization from within that helps our soldiers, AER. Let's give them a big round of applause for all they do. This does conclude our forum. A few admin notes. As a reminder, join us in just a few moments upstairs at 1400 in the main ballroom at the 3rd floor, where we will conduct the AUSA's Marshall presentation and present the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army, the first enlisted recipient of the award, Ken Preston. It's going to be a momentous moment, and I'd ask you to all please take the time to congratulate him and honor him by being at his ceremony. Thanks again to everyone that attended today, and thank you for attending the events all during this week. We are proud to sponsor the Army as the Associated United States Army, and we're proud to deliver products and goods to the soldiers, families, and community members and sponsors and supporters of the United States Army. As just one final note, one of those things because a soldier asked me about them, are these socks. This is something that you can get at AUSA. I just happened to get these socks personally given to me by Medal of Honor recipient Master Sergeant Petrie. Right? So you want to know more about those socks, go to ausa.org. But ladies and gentlemen, God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for attending this week, and Army Strong.